Everyone wishes they could wake up to an inbox full of brand new leads every day, but unfortunately for most people that's just not the reality, and that's how hard it is to find someone who's actually winning when it comes to lead gen. Since inbound is such a big deal, I decided to build a master AI lead gen agent for real estate in n8n. You could use this agent anywhere to make capturing new leads as easy, simple, and cheap as possible. So whether you're in real estate or not, this is honestly a bit of an unfair advantage. And if losing leads or scrambling to organize deals is ever an issue for you, you'll want to stick around for this. So here's a preview. Imagine a lead finds your listing at 2 a.m. and they reach out right away. Instead of having to fill out a boring contact form, they meet your master AI assistant who answers their questions, figures out if they're buying or selling, grabs their info, and can even schedule a showing. Meanwhile, you haven't even woken up yet. Your agent will immediately let your team know, and everything will be organized in your CRM, already prepared for next steps. We all know that whoever is willing to go to the next level to build relationships are the ones who win the deals. So if this sounds interesting, let me show you a quick demo of this AI agent, then I'll take you step by step in n8n so that you can see exactly how this all works. Alright, so as promised, I'm going to take you guys straight into a demo of this agent, and I'm going to show you exactly why it's such a master at lead gen. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to crack open this chat right here. And for the first part of this demo, I'm actually going to pretend like I'm a lead coming into this real estate agent who's interested in buying a house. But first I have a question that I want the agent to answer for me so I can get a little bit of information. So I'm going to ask, can you offer me some information about housing inventory in the Western United States? So this is actually going to allow the agent to pull some information from the internet so that it can give me a more accurate answer on this. So it should be interesting to see how this goes and how the agent actually processes and understands this. Alright, so after thinking for a moment here, the agent was able to search the internet and come up with a nice little answer for me. So the agent's saying, it looks like the housing inventory in the Western US has been impacted in several states, with a notable increase in available homes in December of 2024. Specifically, states like Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Utah, and Washington have seen changes in their housing markets. Would you like me to dive deeper into this topic or help you with something else? So I'm actually very happy with this answer, and I can validate that everything that it just said was accurate in case any of you guys are wondering. So next up, I'm actually going to express some interest in buying a home that this agency has listed. So I'm going to say, yes, I saw a home you have listed and I would like to set up a showing. So I'm going to get this question sent off, and from here the agent should be able to determine that I am an interested buyer, and we'll be able to proceed with the process from there. So looking at this response, the agent just said, great to hear that you're interested in setting up a showing. Let me help you with that. Could you please share your name, email address, and let me know what date and time you'd like to schedule a showing? Also, do you have any specific properties in mind that you like to view? So coming back here, I'm going to say, sure, my name is Keanu Reeves and my email is, and I'm going to censor this information because it's my actual email, just to make sure all of this booking and CRM features are able to be executed properly. And I'd like to see the home on Strickland this Friday at 4:30 p.m. Let's take a look and see if the agent is able to actually set up this event and schedule this showing for me. Alright, so I just got the message back, and it looks like the agent was able to book my showing and update the company's CRM with my info all in one shot. So if we take a look at the response, my agent just said, great Keanu, I've booked a 30-minute home showing at the property on Strickland for this Friday at 4:30 p.m. You'll receive a confirmation email shortly. I've also updated your information in our CRM and notified the team about your interest. Someone will reach out to you soon to confirm the details. Let me know if you need anything else. Alright, so if we come into my Google Calendar here, we can see that the home showing has been set for the Strickland property at 4:30 on this Friday. And if we head into my CRM, under my Clients tab, we can see that Keanu Reeves has in fact been added to my CRM, along with his email address, the listing that he's interested in, as well as his information being categorized as a buyer. So on the buyer side of things, this agent was able to accomplish exactly what I wanted it to, and all of this information has been very nicely organized without me even having to lift a finger. So now that we've seen things from the buyer point of view, let me come in and pretend like I'm a seller. And for this, I've actually reset the chat so that we can start over from scratch. So this time I'm going to come in and say, hi, I'm interested in selling my home that I've owned for a few years. Can you help me? So let's get this second chat started and see how this agent responds. Alright, so I just got my message back, and it looks like the agent is saying, I'm here to help. To get started, could you please provide me with your name, email address, and some details about your home, such as location and square footage? This will help me get the process underway. I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to say, of course, my name is Bruce Lee and my email is, and once again, I'm going to put my email in here. And for some details about the home, I'm going to say the home is located in the Malibu Hills and it's 2,500 square feet. So let's get this sent off and see how the agent processes it. All right, so it looks like the agent activated the right tool and it was able to get my information saved to the CRM. It got back to me and said, "Thanks for providing that information, Bruce. I've added your details to our CRM and the team will reach out to you shortly to discuss selling your home in the Malibu Hills." So once again, if we take a look at our CRM here, we'll see that the new information has been added for Bruce Lee's contact information, and it categorized him as a seller with a home in the Malibu Hills, which is 2,500 square feet. So before we get into the build, if you're actually interested in building this out more, and you happen to have a custom solution in mind or a particular problem you're going through, you can click my first link down in the description, and I'll send you a custom AI action plan completely for free. In the meantime, let's head straight into this build so that you guys can learn how this works. All right, so as you can see, there are quite a few tools going on here in addition to our AI agent. Let's dive straight into the basic part of this so that you guys can understand how the agent itself functions, and then we'll go straight into the tools. Let's get started with our trigger, which is an on-chat message. This is actually the easiest node to use when you're testing out AI agents. All you need to do is when you're in triggers, locate on-chat message, which is going to be down here at the bottom. Once you add this onto your screen, all you're going to need to do is connect it up to your AI agent and it'll be ready to go. You don't need to set anything up here. Now, as for my AI agent, my system prompt is where all of the magic is happening in here. So I'm going to take you step by step through how I engineered this one. But in case you're wondering, you don't need to change either of these two settings right here in the initial agent setup. As long as you use that connected chat trigger node, you can leave both of these default. Now, if I open up my system message here, I have it divided into a few sections here. The first of which being role, the second being task, and the final being other tools. Now, most of my tools and tasks are going to be defined within this central section, which is going to be the main point of reference for this agent's work. But as usual, let me take you guys through the role of this agent to get everything established. So I've set this agent up to be Alan, who is a kind and helpful real estate assistant who's highly skilled in lead gen. I've instructed it that each user it speaks to is going to be a new lead that could potentially become a paid client. It's vital that you address them warmly, determine what they need, and use the correct tools to guide them to the proper outcome. I also made sure to say that an incoming lead can have one of two goals. The first is going to be to buy a home, and the second is going to be to sell a home. And the job of the agent is to guide them along the correct pathway depending on what their goal is. And this is setting the stage for my task because I'm going to break this down step by step so that the agent knows how to deal with each of these two use cases. I've also included a little note here that just states that when you're talking to a user, speak casually as though you're a human. Never mention any of your background tasks, such as updating the CRM. And as I was testing this, I added this little bit in here just because I was having a couple of issues with the agent directly telling me what it was doing in the background. And since that tends to not be such a good user experience, I made sure to prompt that out of this agent just so that we wouldn't have to run into that. And finally, I included today's date as a variable in here just to make everything easy when it comes to the booking feature for this agent. And this is very easy to insert. In case you're wondering, all you have to do is type a double curly bracket, and then within that type $now, and that should automatically pull up the date and time variable. So now that you kind of understand what this agent is going to be doing, let me take you through the tasks so that you can understand how I've broken down each of these workflows for this lead gen agent. So under task, I've opened up by saying depending on the lead's goal, you will choose one of the following pathways. Number one is going to be if they express interest in buying or viewing a home, ask them a question to determine the following: their name, email address, their desired date and time for the meeting, and which, if any, properties they would like to view. Once you have all of this information, I've included 3 bullet points here that will outline each step that the agent is to take. The first is to use the book meeting tool to book them an event. I've also specified that all events are 30 minutes, and this just helps when it comes to booking the actual appointment so that the agent doesn't get confused when it's trying to set a start and end time. And secondly, the attendee field is always the email address, not the person's name. And this is another important thing to include because while I was testing, the agent did get hung up on this a couple of times. Second, when the user ends the conversation, use the update CRM/buyer tool to save their info to the CRM as a buyer. Once you're finished, respond to the user to let them know that you've been booked. And I have a separate tool for sellers because all of these data points are going to be slightly different when they're entered in the CRM. And finally, when the user ends the conversation, also use the notify agent tool to notify the team that they have a new lead. And this is the part that actually allows the team to respond quickly so they can maximize the amount of value that they provide to them. Now, this second workflow is actually if the lead is classified as a seller. And here's how I've set this one up. So I've said if the lead expresses interest in selling their home, ask them a question to determine the following: their name, email address, and the location and square footage of their home. Once you have this info, the first step is to use the CRM/seller tool to add their information to the CRM. Now, this workflow follows a very similar format to the first, in that it's going to take all of their information, package it up, use the seller CRM tool to categorize that into our Airtable database. Secondly, respond to the user letting them know that you got their info and that the team will be reaching out to them shortly. And this is important to include as well because sometimes the agent won't offer a response. It'll simply execute the tools and then not tell the user anything in return. And finally, when the user ends the conversation, use the notify an agent tool to notify the team that they have a new lead. So both of these workflows are pretty straightforward to understand. There's only a few steps per workflow. Now finally, I've included a section on other tools just to clarify a couple of things for the agent. So first up, I've instructed it on how to use my SerpAPI tool. Now, because this is a lead gen agent, leads are definitely going to be coming in with questions at some point, which are going to have to be answered by the agent. I'm going to take you through the SerpAPI tool in a second here, but essentially what this is it's a tool that allows the agent to search on Google in order to answer their question in real time. I've instructed the agent to use this SerpAPI tool if the user asks any questions about the real estate market or broader topics that need more information to respond to. Gather only the most pertinent data and offer a concise, friendly response. Second, I've instructed it to use the notify an agent tool to let the team know that they have a new lead. Do this for every lead that you speak with once you have all of their information. Compose a concise message letting the team know that they have a new buyer or seller to reach out to. Now, if you're following along, you definitely want to include this last section here because both of these tools needed a little bit more context than I was able to fit into this task section. And it just helps improve the user experience for both your agents or your business on the receiving end. So now that you guys know the secret sauce behind this agent, let's actually go through the chat model and the memory system that's powering this agent on a basic level, and then I'll take you through all 5 of these tools. So first up, I have a Grok chat module set up here, and I prefer to use DeepSeek for my AI agents just because it's easy, but if you want to use OpenAI here or Claude, then you can feel free to do that as well. The setup for your chat model is basically going to be the same no matter what you're using. You're going to simply connect your credential account here by pasting in your API key, then you're going to come under model here, select the dropdown, and you're going to simply pick whichever model that you want this AI agent to be powered by. In my case, I like to play around with DeepSeek R170B here. Now second, I actually have a simple memory node set up here, and this is going to allow the agent to actually retain a memory of the chat so that it can understand the context of everything that you say, and it can also save information and reference previous exchanges, so it can send information to your CRM, send it to the Gmail module, and use it to book in calendar events or showings. Assuming your trigger is the same as mine, which is the connected chat trigger node, you don't have to change anything about these first 2 default settings right here. You only have to change those 2 if you're using something other than the chat trigger node, such as a Telegram or a WhatsApp trigger. Under context window length, I tend to set mine to 8 because this works well enough for my testing cases, and I don't usually have more than 8 back and forth messages with an agent under one consecutive test. In a real world use case, it might make more sense to have this more up in the 10 to 15 and possibly even 20 range. There's a lot of back and forth going on, but if you're just testing, feel free to set it to 8, but if you're actually going to deploy, I would recommend that you have it a little higher than this. Alright, so now that we've got the basic bones of our agent covered, it's time to check out each of these tools so that you guys can learn how all of this functionality works. I'm going to start with our book a meeting tool right here, which is powered by Google Calendar. Now, all of these tools are going to be relatively straightforward to set up, and you shouldn't really have too much issue with this. And as a side note, you're going to want to make sure that you just name every tool up here in this upper label section just so that you can have everything consistent. When you instruct your AI agent on how each tool functions, it helps to have a specific name assigned to each tool. So if you haven't set up your Google Calendar credential yet, all you're going to do is you're going to come up here to this top bar, select create a new credential, and you're going to go into your Google Cloud account, set up your credential, and connect all of the necessary scopes with your Google Calendar. And if you've already done this before, or if you've already worked with any Google service connections here, you should have a pretty good idea of how to do this. But if not, that's a little bit outside the scope of this video. Now for our tool description, we're just going to keep that to set automatically. Our resource is going to be event, and operation is going to be create. Now you're going to want to make sure that you select the proper calendar from your drop-down list. In my case, I only had one, which is assigned to my email address. As for the start and end times for this event, I have this defined both by the model, just to keep everything really easy, and it helps to keep all of the data transfer as consistent as possible when you're going from message to event here. You can leave use default reminders checked on. However, you do want to add 2 additional fields in the bottom section here. The first is going to be attendees, and the second is going to be summary. And you're going to want to click define automatically by the model for both of these options. It's going to take the lead's email, drop it in right here, and it's going to take the summary of the event itself, and it's going to define that so it can label each event. This little summary is just going to make all of your events very easy to track, and when you look at your calendar, you're going to know exactly what everything is. Now this is about it when it comes to your book a meeting tool. This is pretty straightforward to set up, and allowing the model to define all of these parameters and variables just makes everything really straightforward. Alright, so next up I actually have my SerpAPI tool, and this is the one that's going to allow us to do Google searches and send that information back to the model so that it can summarize it and answer user questions. Now this is actually very easy to set up. Literally the only thing you need to do is connect your credential with your SerpAPI account. You don't need to add anything else for this node because it just functions automatically and it collaborates very well with your agent. Now in order to set this up, you're going to have to make an account on SerpAPI. Luckily they have a free plan which allows you to have 100 searches per month, so this will work very well when it comes to testing. Of course, if you want want more than that, then you can pay for it so that you can have more freedom of access. But in order to create your connection here, you're going to simply come onto the left-hand side underneath account. You're going to select the option that says API key. Now under this section, you're going to have a private API key generated for you right here. And all you're going to do is copy this right here and paste it directly into your SerpAPI connection right here. And literally that's all you're going to need to do. Once you have that set up, you'll be able to search the internet according to user questions. The agent will be able to turn all of that information into a real-time response, assuming that you have a strong prompt setup like the one that I just took you guys through. Alright, so next up, let's take a look at our two CRM update tools. As I mentioned earlier, I have one that's set to buyer and the other that's set to seller. Both of these tools are going to work in pretty much the same way, but there are a few differences that I want to take you through. Now, all of these settings are going to be pretty much the same in both. So I've set up my Airtable credential right here, which is connected to my real estate database. My tool description is set automatically. My resource is record and operation is create. Now my particular base is called real estate CRM, so that's the one that I chose here. And within that real estate CRM, I have a clients table, and that's the one that I'm going to be adding data to here. You're going to want to make sure that your mapping column mode is set to manual. And once you have all of this connected, you should be able to see all of the values that are located in your Airtable database. Now in my case, I have a few categories here, which involve the client name, contact info, interested listings, budget, whether they're a buyer or seller, and a summary of their property info if they're a seller. Now I have the client name, contact info, interested listings, and whether they're a buyer or seller set automatically here. Now when it comes to our messaging, all of these are going to be taken care of by the model as it analyzes the conversation and pulls out the proper data. Now when it comes to budget, I actually set that to 0 because I didn't actually instruct the agent to inquire about this during this chat, and assuming this lead actually converts into a client, the agents can actually discuss budget with them on a more nuanced perspective. I decided to just leave this one to the humans. And because this is also a buyer, I've manually entered NA under my property info category. Now because this is a buyer, they're not going to have a property that they're selling, so obviously we're not going to have any information to put there. Now again, this is very straightforward to set up, and the agent is actually able to interpret all of this information very easily and get it all categorized correctly. Now let's take a look at our seller CRM tool. As you can see, all of these settings that I have set up here up until mapping column mode are all going to be identical to the CRM for the buyer. We're still going to be creating a new record under the same base, under the same table. However, there are a couple of things that I've changed under the values to send just because the information is slightly different than a buyer. Now client name and contact info are to be defined automatically by the model. Now for interested listings, I have manually entered NA just because obviously as a seller, you're not going to be interested in buying anything. So this is irrelevant. Budget is going to be 0 because again, this is an irrelevant category for a seller. And right here, I've manually entered in seller for buyer or seller. Of course, you could just define this automatically by the model and end up with the same result. So no matter what you prefer doing here, it'll be fine either way. Now, lastly, the property info is actually going to take whatever information that the lead has just described their property, and it's going to enter this directly into the CRM so that the agents can keep all of this information organized. For example, as you see in my latest entry, Bruce Lee over here was trying to sell his home in the Malibu Hills, which is 2,500 square feet. Now, having a concise summary like this is going to be very useful for agents when they're coming through the CRM later on and taking a look at their lead lists. And once again, having a few of these things defined automatically by the model just helps keep all of the data clean, and it helps keep the presentation as simple as possible. And that's about it when it comes to this CRM tool. They're both very similar, and it doesn't take all that long to get set up. Now our final tool here is actually going to be the notify an agent tool. And this is going to be the one that's going to notify our team whenever we get a new lead. Now once again, we have a Gmail credential that's set up here, which is going to function pretty much the same as any other Google credential that you've set up. You're going to have to go under your Google Cloud Console, get your client ID and your client secret, and get those pasted in there after following all of the connection steps. Now our tool description is going to be set automatically. Our resource is going to be message because we're going to be sending a message to the agent, and our operation obviously is going to be send. Now under 2, I'd recommend that you manually enter the email or emails that you want this notification to be sent to. In this workflow, you can't automatically define this by the model because there is no email mentioned for the sender within this conversation. This also makes sure that each of your leads are going to be sent to the same people. And once again, this just keeps everything consistent. Now the subject and the message are going to be defined automatically by the model because the AI is going to be looking over the conversation. It's going to be determining what exactly to send to you depending on the client's information and whether or not they're a buyer or seller. And since this is all going to be generated by the agent itself, you don't really need to worry about that. The last thing you're going to do is just set email type to text as opposed to HTML. And aside from that, there isn't too much to do here. However, I will mention that if you want to turn off n8n attribution here, you can simply come under options, click on append n8n attribution, and then just select this to off. And of course, this is an optional step, but what this does is it takes off that little tag at the base of your emails that just says this email was generated by n8n. That's it when it comes to this notifying agent tool. Once again, very straightforward to get set up. So that covers everything I wanted to talk to you guys about with this master AI lead gen agent. Now, although this is an excellent use case for real estate agents, you can really apply this to any company or any industry that involves a lot of face-to-face contact and a lot of nuance and trust when it comes to actually generating leads and offering upfront value to people before they've actually been able to meet you. And if you made it all the way through these instructions, you probably are able to see that although there's quite a few things going on here when it comes to the tools and the actual agent prompt, it's all very doable and it can have a huge impact on your lead gen operations and also in the way that prospects perceive your business before they've actually decided to sign a deal with you. Now, I hope you guys got some value out of this video, and if you happen to have any specific AI solutions that you want built, or if you happen to know anybody else who's interested in building custom AI solutions, feel free to connect with me with my links down in the description. Feel free to get your own personalized AI action plan if you have anything in particular that you're curious about. Now, if you made it all the way to the end, I appreciate you for watching, and if you'd like to see more content like this, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe down below. And as usual, feel free to leave any questions that you may have about this down in the comments. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll catch you all in the next one.